Hey everyone, Greta here, and welcome to this episode of Let's Chat. And today I'd like to talk about an observation that I have had, and I find it quite interesting. So, for yoga, we are always saying that, you should use yoga to kind of, reconnect with yourself and to really feel. And when we are doing physical yoga practice, and I've been teaching at various places, larger studios, smaller studios, and I've noticed that there is, I don't know if we can call it a trend or a I don't really know what you call it, but I find that practitioners are so keen on going to the deepest interpretation of the shape. So I'll give two examples. There was a while when I was teaching a yin class, and the shape that we were doing was like a squat. And before we did it, I was giving them like a description, explanation of, what we are going to do and things like that. And then as soon as, I finished explaining, then I was like, yeah, so your turn, take it easy, whatever. And then I saw a few of the practitioners going right into that squat, that I kind of know it looks very textbook-like, and they would round the spine, head down, and just going very, very deep already. And I was quite, I didn't know how to react. Like, they were doing it so fast that it was like within like maybe 5 seconds, and they were in the shape already. And then there was another time when I was guiding a vinyasa one class, and I have a habit of giving variations. So the shape that I was doing was like warrior one, and then the arm shapes, arm positions, I gave them a few, and about 3, and all of them chose the third one. And so that was the beginning of the practice. And throughout the entire practice, I noticed that they were all picking the last variation, and got me quite amused. Then I started experimenting. So there would be like a shape that maybe like a warrior 2, again, 3 options. One option, the first one was arms out, kind of what you would see in a more traditional setting. Second option was with calf-face arms. The third option was hands on hips. And then they would pick the third one, the last one, which was hands on hips. And then I would actually ask people, the entire group, that is it really, really the case where all of them will want to place their hands on their hips? That got me so amazed. And so these two scenarios kind of inspired me to do this little podcast, this little sharing, was because in a way I'm very intrigued, and in a way I'm actually very sad, because yoga is supposed to be, feeling, reconnecting with ourselves, more like an internal dialogue. However, we're always been trained to really switch off and listen externally. I know there's a saying for yoga, like you switch off to switch on, but then I realized that a lot of people practicing the physical yoga practice is switching off entirely switching off not just the external noise, but also the internal dialogue, the internal voice, and just kind of listen to what the teacher or what the guide has to instruct us to do. And that shouldn't be the case, because the role of a teacher is to guide and not to restrict or to limit the practitioner to explore. Of course, when you sign up for like a vinyasa class, you would be expecting to flow, to move a bit, to move in a more dynamic, faster tempo. But then, and of course there will be guys like, okay, we're going to do a warrior one. So, you don't want, someone in the room when the rest of the class is doing a warrior one, and then all of a sudden they're doing a handstand, or they're doing a wheel pose, or something that's totally out of the context. So I do understand that, but I think that, what I believe is that for yoga, as a teacher, we should give them guidelines. As for the details, I think practitioners should be encouraged to tune in, to listen to what the body wants. And also I think for practitioners, I think that we also would want to, really feel what our body needs. Because teachers, of course, they are very well trained. However, we're not psychics. We don't have a crystal ball. Actually, I don't know if any yoga teachers now would mix, with have a crystal ball as a prop. I don't know nowadays. It's also fancy. To really read what your body actually needs or what your body wants. So I think that both parties should explore more. For practitioners, is it, whatever that you're doing, are you really following 100% of the teacher's instructions? If you are practicing a method which is very strict, which is like a set sequence, like Bikram, hot yoga, or Ashtanga, where the sequence is fixed, then, when you enter that room, then, you don't really have a choice, right? You kind of have to follow. You either practice or you don't practice. The mindset is a little bit different. However, when you're entering a class, let's say, that doesn't have a strict set of instructions to follow, then perhaps it's a chance for you to follow your heart, or follow, it sounds quite cliche, or maybe follow your body. Not every time in a warrior one, your arms would want to lift overhead. Maybe you feel better, with the hands behind the head, and then just kind of open the elbows out, really open up the chest a bit more. Or maybe you just want to focus on the legs because, your shoulders are really tired, your arms are really tired. So you place your hands, on the heart center, maybe even your hands on your thigh, your front thigh. That's perfectly fine. I think that yoga is more like a tool to help us to explore and understand our body better. So I don't think we should go against it. I know that none of us are doing it, on purpose. However, what we're demonstrating is kind of against, the belief of yoga. And for people going right into, the shape, the example that I set out for the yin class that I taught, is it wrong? Is it right? Again, there's no wrong and no right, but I just feel that, and especially in a yin practice, where we are just spending like 5 minutes on each shape, then it would be good if we could take it slow. It seems to me that in that particular practice, the practitioners were starting from point A, where I think they were sitting, we were all sitting, preparing or getting ready to do the shape, and then point B in the shape. The in-between from point A to point B, that in-between, that journey, that transition was gone. It was not, well, it was kind of like discarded in a way. I feel that a lot of people just want to get into the shape and just be there. But how you enter the shape, how you exit the shape is also a part of the practice. You think, with technology, we want everything right now, immediately, instantly, that we think the in-between, that the journey is a waste of time, that we get really impatient. Everything's so fast, we don't want to wait. But for yoga, it reminds us that, we need to take the time to move from point A to point B. And that's never a waste of time. That's never something that we should be annoyed or become impatient about, because there's so much information that the body's telling us. If we disregard all the details, then it's kind of difficult to really understand what's going on. Especially nowadays, I find that there are so many people getting injured in the yoga practice, but they're still pushing for it. That is really funny. I mean, yeah, I do a lot of these like really deep physical shapes. This morning I was just doing leg behind the head, and I spent so much time in that. That's a deep one, but I was taking my time. I was like really listening. Am I ready for it? Like, if I really want to do it, am I forcing my body to be in that shape? Or, when I'm getting into, when I'm trying to put the leg behind the head, how is my body reacting to this? How's my breath? I know I can do leg behind the head, but is it the shape that my body wants me to do at that time? What you can, what you want are two very different things, especially when it comes to physical yoga practice. The mind always wants to prove, because we are educated, we're trained from a very young age that we need to be the best. We need to, be competitive. If not, then we would, be fallen behind, will become forgotten for whatever reason. So when we practice yoga, it's very natural to bring in that mindset as well. But that's not what yoga is. If we just kind of switch off the in-between and just go for that end goal, then it's kind of, that's how injuries can take place, because we're not ready for it. The mind and the body are not really communicating. They're not working together as a pair, where it's more like the mind is kind of dragging the body, right? So I think that it's important to really reach in And I was taking a training, and ironically, it's not a yoga training, it's a back bend training. And it was an online training. And after the back bend, the coach was like, okay, so just move. You need to move intuitively. You need to know how to move intuitively. And that really hit me hard because, you need to know. You need to know how to move according to your instincts or what the body wants, in a more cliche way. Because that is how you get to understand your body. And if we are not really, connecting or really thinking about how is body doing today, then it's really sad because we always say that no one understands you better than yourself, but even yourself, you're not dedicating the time to understand your own self. And yoga is not about challenging your body and or the mind to the extreme, right? Because if it is, then yoga wouldn't be referred to as an alternative healing method, right? There are so many people coming to yoga, and so many medical professionals recommending or referring their patients to do yoga to, fix their body. So there has to be some merits in it, right? And there is a lot of research done and proved that yoga is helpful to people with emotional situations like depression, all those things. Then there should be something behind it. It's not about forcing yourself into physical shapes. Then if it is, then it's like gymnastics or contortion, which definitely they're not. Because for contortion, they spend a lot of time doing a lot of warm-ups and drills, really boring drills, and work on specific parts of the body to get the body to be ready to perform different shapes, all those really extreme shapes. And I've been to yoga classes where I've been to contortion classes, and on the outside, on the end product, maybe it's still really extreme shapes, but how you set up for that extreme shape, they're very, very different in a contortion class and a yoga class. In the contortion class, it's really boring. It's hard work. But then for yoga, you kind of flow, and all of a sudden you see, okay, now we go up into a handstand. You're like, what? Now you put the leg behind the head. You're like, what? Things like that. So if you want to do extreme shapes in a yoga class setting, then you really have to take the time to understand your body. I'm not saying that if you do a yoga practice, then you shouldn't do anything extreme. No, never that. But it's not just pushing yourself to it. It's not from point A to point B and there's no in-betweens. It's the in-between that allows you to prepare fully for point B, which is that, that shape that you want to do, right? So it is actually quite different. Moving intuitively, moving where the movement is led by the body and not the ego or the mind is hugely important. I don't know about you, but I want my practice to be sustainable. I want to be able to move freely and not having any aches and pains when I'm all the way into my elderly age. So that is how I approach my practice, my physical yoga practice. It's so easy to just switch everything off, because yeah, life is tough. Nothing is easy anymore. And just stepping onto the yoga mat seems like you kind of entered a whole new different world, kind of like a parallel world. So you kind of switch off and then you just go in and not think, so that you just follow. And it's kind of nice because we think a lot all the time. But then thinking during our everyday life or maybe work is completely different from thinking in a yoga practice context. You're processing what are the messages that the body is telling you. When you're so busy not listening to the body, listening to the outside world, like emails and meetings and all the messages that you get from the media or even when you're out on the street. It's a very, very different way of thinking, of processing. And that kind of processing is actually very awakening, very refreshing, I would say. And that, of course, it's just my opinion. It's what makes the practice complete. That, after the yoga, the physical yoga practice, when I get back outside into that real world again, I feel that I still have the strength to carry on. So that's it for my sharing for today. Again, everything that I shared is basically based on my observation, my point of view. I just want people to, or actually I invite you, next time to step on a yoga mat, to think, to really think what your body needs. Take it easy. I'll see you again soon.